Hello everybody and welcome back. It's been a little while since I made a video. I meant to make one a couple days ago. Today's video is about outsourcing and how it is a betrayal of the American labor force. And I want to just emphasize that this is a conversation that should never have had anything to do with immigration. It has become that narrative, but only after 50 years of corporate capture of the government. The only way you have 40%, according to GPT, 40% of the tech industry is currently overseas in India or Pakistan or elsewhere. 40% is a completely ludicrous number, and another 6 to 7% are H-1B visas. So let's just effectively say half of all the jobs in the industry are going to non-Americans. This has become a level of betrayal that is undermining the well-being and the ability to live freely and comfortably and pursue the American dream for an entire generation of young people who did the right thing in the sense that they had higher aspirations than washing dishes or digging holes for a living. And they spent probably thousands of hours, and unfortunately, anyone that went to school spent tens of thousands of dollars, probably on debt, so that they could get a degree that the government would allow corporations to overseas, I'm using that as a verb, so that they can make a little bit more money. And this just keeps circling the drain of corporate capture of the United States government. And there will be all of these layers of unnecessary narrative put on top of this. And at the end of the day, all that's doing is forcing regular people like you and me to draw lines in the sand that we never wanted to draw in the first place. I don't have any problem with some guy in India who wants to learn to code and wants to get a coding job. In fact, more power to him. I immediately have a problem with that when that job is necessarily being taken from an American just so that the company can pay the Indian guy. I mean, if he's actually in India, if they're not bringing him to America, they're paying him, again, according to GPT, as little as 4% of what they would pay a commensurate salary for an American citizen. So on the low end, a low end of payment, that is, they're making a 96% difference in cost basis. Even on the high end, extremely well-paid engineers in India are making like 80 or 70% of what an average developer would make here. On top of that, it gets even more grotesque and corrupt when we're talking about the H-1B situation, because they're effectively indentured servants because they can't afford to lose their visa. So they'll always work more. They'll never ask for more money. They will be taken advantage of. I mean, again, it's the narrative that this has something to do with anti-immigrant or what's the word? It'd be like xenophobia, right? A sentiment against people who aren't American. That's complete nonsense. If your house is on fire, you do not hate the fire. I don't feel emotion about the thing that's burning the house down. I feel emotion about the house apparently no longer existing in the near future. And that is what the American tech industry is. It's something that's about to not exist anymore because corporations are allowed to buy the government, and then the government won't do its only job. Its only job is to protect the people. And it seems to be the only thing it can't do. It can do anything else you can imagine. It can do things that are impossible. But its actual job to look out for the people who are paying the taxes, who are voting in elections, no, the government won't do that. So now we're in this situation, and we've been forced into this box. And I get a lot of comments from developers all over the world. And I have a great deal of sympathy for people who are in places with weaker currency. The prospect of going to a country with stronger currency is incredible. Imagine how exhilarating that is. The idea that you've been doing a job in your country and you can do the exact same job and make 10 times more money relative to the strength of currency. That has to be an intoxicating perspective. And so I don't blame any of those people. Frankly, it's the same. I have the same mentality for people who like swim here from Cuba. I remember I had maybe this is a dark story. All right. I'll tell it. But we had this Argentine dishwasher at the restaurant I used to manage. And he came into the country illegally, and then he was there for years and got a green card. And I was talking to him about, actually, he started the conversation. He was the greatest employee I've ever had, maybe the greatest coworker I've ever had in all my years in food service, which is really saying a lot. But he would always be there early. He'd always leave late. He brought in his own chisel set so that he could more effectively get the ancient grease that was caked onto these pans off. And he would just be in the back singing and dancing his entire shift. He looked like he was about 23. He was 47. And I was always the last one to leave, of course, because I'm the manager. I have all these extra duties. And so everyone else finishes their job before me usually. So on this night, I'm sitting there, I'm doing the finances. And this guy, despite being 47, you could tell that he still was a child at heart, which it was just very wholesome. And so he would always come to me afterwards, and he would always call me Mr. Brian. And he would ask me for a slice of cake. And every single night, I was like, brother, this whole operation comes crushing down if you leave. You can have as much cake as you want. Take the entire fucking cake. Don't just take one slice. But one day, instead of taking the cake and leaving, which he usually does, he came and sat down with me. Now, I don't remember what I said to him that got him to tell me his story. But his story was effectively this. He grew up in this little town in the mountains, and his uncle lived on the other side of the mountain. And hypothetically, it would be a simple bus ride from one mountain to the other, one town to the other through the mountain. But it's a very dangerous area. Argentina I'm 99% sure is where he was from. There's a lot of countries in South America, okay? I worked with lots of South Americans. I'm pretty sure he was from Argentina. But, and I guess being 47, this was probably like in the 80s. Anyway, he was a kid, and he used to ask his mom all the time, especially approaching summer, because he would be out of school, and that was like the funnest time to go visit his uncle in the other city. And he would ask his mom and she would say no, and he would ask his mom and she would say no, etc. And then finally one year, his mom says, yes, conditionally. You're still too young to go on your own. You have to go with your brother. Now, I think the Argentinian guy was like 12 at the time, maybe 11 or something like that. His brother, I think, was 16 or 17. Well, some group of whoever, again, he didn't elaborate on what they were. They were like guerrillas or revolutionaries or drug dealers or something like that. They stopped the bus in the mountains and they pull off all of the adults, basically everyone over 15, and shoot them. And then him and the other children were left on the bus, and eventually him and the other children just walked the remaining miles to the other town. And he was like, from that day forward, not only did I never go back to the hometown that I grew up in, but I dedicated myself to getting to America no matter what. And then he was sitting across the table eating this slice of cake, and he's like, now that I'm here, everything is good. Every day is good. Every day is good now that I'm here. And that was very profound. And I say that in relation to this conversation about outsourcing and overseas labor and protectionism, which is where, frankly, I think America has to go. But it needs to be within the context of preserving labor force participation for American citizens. I don't care if you've only been a citizen for 1 hour. If you just got your citizenship at 12 o'clock and it's 1 p.m. when we're having this conversation, I think that your labor participation should trump anybody's who isn't American, because we are hurtling toward a future where, between robotics and artificial intelligence, I sincerely think it's unrealistic for the majority of people to expect that what they're doing today, what they're trading in human labor value for X amount of currency with Y amount of buying power, that entire paradigm is, the foundations are cracking, and I'd say within the next 10 or 20 years, it will be completely fractured and wash away into the sea of automation. And so frankly, I do believe that for the next 25 years, we should take an extremely protectionist approach. We should, even if it means forcing companies to make less money, they should be forced to hire Americans. The idea that you can outsource 40% of the industry, the idea that Meta can fire 10,000 developers and then the very next day apply for 10,000 H-1B visas, it is heinous. It is pure betrayal. Pure. Again, betrayal of our government to us. It has nothing to do with the people that, are being selected to be our replacements. It's not their fault. It is explicitly the fault of government. I don't even blame the companies. That's, we're getting a little bit on a side tangent here. But when I examine my life and all the media that I've consumed and all the messaging that's been fed to me, what I find over and over again is that it's everybody's fault except the government. It's companies, it's the corporations, it's the CEOs, it's the lawyers, it's the bankers, it's drug dealers. It's everybody you can imagine. It's the foreigner, it's the local, it's everybody. The poor person, the rich person, the dumb person, the smart person, the fat person. Everybody's at fault except the government. And at the end of the day, I think that was mostly just propaganda. I think the government's at fault, and it's easy for them to say, if we didn't have these rich people, we wouldn't have these problems. If we didn't have these companies with these predatory practices, it wouldn't be these problems. But the economy is like a picnic, and the government took a slice of cake and put it on the grass. And then we look away for 10 minutes and we look back and the cake is covered in ants. The ants are the individuals. And the idea that you're going to blame the ants for showing up to the picnic and you're not going to blame the person who put the cake in the fucking grass? Come on. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Side tangent. Okay. So I'm done with this paradigm that American citizens must be the sacrificial lamb, that the government will never pay a price, corporations will never pay a price, and therefore the American citizens have to pay the price. And we've been paying the price for much longer than I've been alive. I know that there's a lot of people watching me. I think somebody just commented earlier that they had like 30-something years of development experience. So that person must be 50 years old or 60 years old. All the way back when that person was a kid, the bill was still being pushed off onto the American people. And as long as this paradigm exists where we are the sacrificial lamb, I think it's entirely within reason for us to belligerently oppose it. Whatever that means. Even if that means voting in radical protectionism, at least for the next generation. Even if that means 100% of those outsourced jobs going to employees overseas. If 100% of people in India and Pakistan lose their American tech jobs, I'm sorry for those individuals, but I support that decision because that means that Americans are getting that job. That means there's another American who isn't struggling to find what should have been a great position and something that they probably worked their fucking ass off to get. As far as H-1Bs go, and I said this from day one, and then Elon Musk came out and said something almost identical, and I couldn't agree more with this sentiment. Just put an arbitrary and very high salary on the H-1B. Take the national average and just multiply it by 4 or 5. And then now that's the bare minimum base salary, no stock options, no bullshit, no bonuses. And that would be a salary of like 250 grand. So what happens then is first 99% of H-1Bs are revoked because the companies are only hiring these people so they can pay them less than they pay an American. But the truly gifted, the people who truly are, there's only like 4 of them in the world. And companies all over the world are jockeying for these people. And those people, their career is basically them jumping from one team to another based on who's paying them the best. All of those people will command salaries greatly in excess of 5x the national average. What we're trying to exclude here is Americans being taken advantage of by corporations who are taking advantage of a system which was designed with the intention of being taken advantage of. Because everyone's getting kickbacks except us. All right, I guess that was more political than I intended it to be. But half of the industry is already gone. Half. And so to the hundreds of, oh, by the way, I think ChatGPT said there's about 9 million tech industry jobs in America, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'll look it up real quick. That would mean that 4.5 million Americans, 4.5 million are out of work as a direct result of these. 9.4 million is the total industry. And so that's nearly 5 million Americans should be working a well-paying, respectable job, the type of job that you can buy a house with, the type of job where you can have a family, and they're not. They're forced into a different industry. They're forced to take radically lower pay, or they're just homeless and unemployed, and they're under a bridge shooting fentanyl or whatever. That's the progression. You go working a great tech job, fentanyl under a bridge. There's nothing in between. Yeah, 9.4 industry, 9.4 million. It's a disgusting betrayal. Anyway, I'm just rambling now. Thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe. Buy my book. You see, I got these fantastic shelves. And you see here, I have my sheepskin. Oh yeah, I got a rabbit there. A man should have furs. A man should have, and this is real fur. This is real skin of an animal here. A man should have animal skins just about. And I got some yellow lighting for this right here. I don't know if you can see that or not because my screen is so small. I'm not going to know until I edit it. What the fuck am I just rambling? It's been a crazy day. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.